buy less, choose well, make it last. Because we don't need so much.
The designer who turned rebellion into art. Vivienne Westwood didn't just make clothes, she ignited a cultural shift. From her bold beginnings dressing the Sex Pistols to her daring runway shows, she transformed fashion into a statement of defiance. Westwood challenges traditions and broke every rule. Her designs were calls to action, each piece a reflection of her fearless vision.
All activists, you, everybody, we're all driven by the same motive. We cannot stand human suffering.
So how did this working-class girl from Tintwistle become one of the most influential voices in fashion history? Vivienne Westwood's journey began in the small town of Tintwistle, where she was born on April 8, 1941. Growing up in a working-class family, her father, a storekeeper at an aircraft factory, and her mother, who married just as World War II broke out, provided a simple but steady upbringing. Even as a young girl, Vivienne had a curious mind and creative spark. When she was 17, her family moved to Harrow in Greater London, making the start of a new chapter. She tried studying silversmithing at Harrow Art School, but dropped out, unsure of how to make it in the art world. Instead, she worked in a factory and trained to become a teacher. During this time, she began crafting her own jewelry, selling it at markets, a small hint of the bold designer she would one day become. In the 1960s, Vivienne married Derek Westwood, sewing her own wedding dress for the occasion, but their union didn't last long. Her life changed drastically when she met Malcolm McLaren, a rebellious and creative soul who introduced her to a world of possibilities. Together, they became a force in the burgeoning punk movement, setting up shop at 430 Kings Road in London. Their boutique, which constantly evolved in name and style, became a magnet for young punks looking for something daring and different.
If you study yourself art, you become a freedom fighter immediately because your life changes. You get off the consumer treadmill, you start thinking, buy less clothes, keep wearing things that you've really chosen that you love, and that is status.
Westwood and McLaren weren't just selling clothes, they were shaping a revolution. Their designs were loud, provocative, and unapologetic, filled with safety pins, torn fabrics, and bold slogans. Their boutique became a meeting spot for the London punk scene, especially as McLaren managed the Sex Pistols, who wore Westwood's edgy designs.
It's a question of how you feel. The point is to change yourself. And if you
why? Why does one have to change?
Because then you'll feel great. I didn't want to be a fashion designer at all. I did it to help a boyfriend that I had whose name was Malcolm McLaren.
From fetish-inspired pieces to mohair sweaters that screamed rebellion, Vivienne's creations weren't just fashion, they were statements. She wanted to shake things up, to make people think and react. And boy, did she succeed. But as the years went on, her influence reached far beyond punk, shaping the fashion world in ways no one could have imagined. After shaking up the streets of London, Vivienne turned her focus toward high fashion. Her first major collection, Pirate, debuted in 1981 and showed everyone that her designs weren't just about shocking people. They were works of art. This collection drew on historic European styles from the 18th and 19th centuries, blending traditional tailoring with bold African prints. It was a visual feast of oversized jackets, flowing trousers, and dramatic colors. Pirate set the stage for Vivienne to explore history in her designs, taking inspiration from corsets, bustles, and even the French Revolution. She had this way of making the old feel new, like reinterpreting the crinoline skirt as the playful mini crinny, which combined Victorian-era style with modern edginess.
People have never looked so dreadful, ever. If you buy something that really suits you, it talks about your character and your personality.
Vivienne's collections always told stories. The Harris Tweed collection in 1987 was a standout, using Scotland's traditional fabric in fresh, unexpected ways. She paired it with neck ruffs and corsets that referenced historical art, like the works of Francois Boucher. And then there was Anglomania in 1993, which blended English tailoring with dramatic French-inspired proportions. You might even remember Naomi Campbell famously stumbling on the runway in high-heeled platform shoes during the show, a moment that cemented Vivienne's designs as daring and unforgettable.
There's a trick to walking in your shoe.
Let me tell you, stop. The reason you fell is because you had these rubber tights.
Yes!
And your thighs caught together and gave you a stick.
Yes!
And you did not use the stick. You went down the catwalk with the stick like this instead, just to...
As Vivienne's career progressed, she didn't just focus on fashion for fashion's sake. She used her platform to speak up about issues that mattered to her. She was one of those first designers to call attention to the climate crisis. Her motto, "Buy less, choose well, make it last," became a rallying cry for sustainable fashion. Vivienne's runways often look more like protests than traditional shows.
You buy less and choose well. It's a very different matter than just buying clothes to put in the washing machine. My advice as a fashion designer has been to people, stop buying clothes for at least 6 months. And when you do, you might choose well.
In 2013, her Save the Arctic campaign turned into a full-on fashion moment, with models wearing bold slogans and designs that demanded action. She even rode a tank to the UK Prime Minister's house in 2015 to protest fracking. How many designers can say that they've done that?
If we don't save the Arctic, forget it. That's it. You know, first thing we have to do, save the rainforest, save the Arctic, otherwise forget it.
Her activism didn't stop at the environment. She was outspoken about politics, free speech, and justice. And Vivienne didn't just talk the talk. She walked it, partnering with charities, using sustainable materials, and even going digital with her shows in later years to reduce their environmental impact. It wasn't just everyday people who admired Vivienne's work. Celebrities and royalty couldn't get enough of her either. In 1992, when Queen Elizabeth awarded her the OBE, or Order of the British Empire, Vivienne made headlines for showing up without underwear, spinning for cameras, and making a bold statement about freedom and rebellion. Princess Eugenie wore Vivienne's designs for Prince William's wedding, and Dita Von Teese stunned the world in a purple Westwood gown at her wedding to Marilyn Manson. Even Carrie Bradshaw wore a custom Westwood wedding dress in the Sex and the City, a design so iconic that it sold out almost instantly when a ready-to-wear version was released online. Celebrities like Rihanna, Lady Gaga, Madonna, Kate Moss, and Dua Lipa also turned to Vivienne's designs to make bold fashion statements. And let's not forget her work in Final Fantasy XV, where she designed Luna Freya's wedding dress, blending her signature style with fantasy elements. Through it all, Vivienne remained true to her values. She believed in using fashion as a tool to question the status quo, to challenge traditions, and to inspire change. Whether it was a tartan suit, a slogan-covered t-shirt, or a corset that celebrated women's strength, her designs always had something to say. But staying true to her rebellious roots wasn't always easy, especially as she navigated the challenges of the commercial fashion world.
The war says, I have created 10 million war refugees. Peace.
Balancing creativity with the demands of a business is tricky for any designer. But for someone as bold as Vivienne, it was a constant tug-of-war. She once said she didn't feel comfortable defending her clothes against the consumerism they fed into, but she urged people to buy thoughtfully. This philosophy helped Vivienne stand apart, but it also meant her business wasn't always traditional. Her decision to align her corporate practices with her environmental values was admirable, but it came with controversy.
Popular culture is really a contradiction in terms. It's, you know, if it's popular, it doesn't need, it's not original.
Vivienne also faced challenges as she expanded her brand globally. By the mid-2010s, she had over 60 stores worldwide, including locations in China, Korea, and the US, bringing her designs to a diverse audience. But with that growth came pressure to compete with luxury fashion giants. While others churned out collection after collection to meet demand, Vivienne refused to compromise her principles. Instead, she slowed her production pace to focus on sustainability and thoughtful design.
Switch to green energy supplier. It'll make a world of difference.
When critics questioned her balance between activism and business, Vivienne responded with bold actions, such as her manifesto, Active Resistance to Propaganda. It encouraged people to challenge consumerism, embrace art, and think critically. Despite these challenges, Vivienne's triumphs far outweigh the struggles. Her induction into the Scottish Fashion Awards Hall of Fame in 2014 highlighted her lasting impact on fashion, particularly her love for Scottish textiles. Her use of tartan became synonymous with her brand, a nod to her respect for tradition.
Thank you very much for the award. I think it's a very good idea to have that award because we need a bit of positive change.
One of Vivienne's greatest contributions was her mentorship. She didn't just create clothes, she inspired a generation of designers. People like Maddie Bovin, who discovered her work as a teen and later created pieces for Naomi Campbell, credited her with changing their lives.
Being conscious in the world, it had a big impact on me. Because it was about around the time that I started working with Nelson Mandela in South Africa, so it was all new to me still.
Through her teachings and collaborations, Vivienne passed down her love for craftsmanship, her fearless approach to design, and her passion for activism. Her husband and creative partner, Andreas Kronthaler, has carried forward her vision, ensuring her brand remains independent and true to its roots.
My husband Andreas is such a wonderful designer and this is his show, and he asked me to walk in this show.
Whether through her runway shows, her bold statements, or her art, Vivienne used every opportunity to push for a better world. When Vivienne passed away in 2022, the world felt a little less vibrant. Tributes poured from every corner. Designers like Marc Jacobs, Zandra Rhodes, and Stella McCartney celebrated her as a fearless trailblazer. Celebrities and fans shared how her designs made them feel powerful and seen. Even now, her work continues to inspire, with her fashion house still creating collections that honor her spirit of artistry and activism. Vivienne's legacy reminds us that fashion can be more than just beautiful. It can be meaningful. So what do you think about Vivienne's incredible journey?